Hello everyone, welcome to our PMP exam question and answer solving session for November. Now, if you are preparing for the PMP exam, you can use today's class to assess how well you are prepared for the exam, okay? So out of the 5 questions that we are going to solve today, the target will be to get all the 5 out of the 5 questions correct. However, the minimum expectation is that you should get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct to consider yourself fairly well prepared for the PMP exam. Now, anything less than that, you might need a bit more preparation, okay? Also, if you are preparing for the PMP exam, you might want to check out my training courses on Udemy, and you can also consider to join my YouTube membership community. All of them are very well reviewed amongst the students like you, and I will provide all the details on how you can join the same later on in this video, okay? So give this video a like, get a pen and a paper, and let's get started with question number 1.
Right, so question number 1, guys. Please pause the video, read the question, and try to answer it before we solve this together. Right, so let's get started. So you know the situation, right? So you were in a status review meeting and your developers are expressing concerns about consistently missing sprint deadlines because of complex user stories, okay? So now let's go through the options one by one and let's discuss how should you handle it as an ideal project manager, okay? So let's first look at option A. So option A suggests implementing a story point estimation system for backlog refinement. Now, while story points are fantastic tools, and I'm sure many of you use them as part of your day-to-day agile projects, jumping straight onto this solution is like, let's say, buying a new car because your current one made a strange noise, as simple as that, right? Think about it. Shouldn't we just figure out first what's causing the problem or what's causing the noise in your car, right? So maybe your team already has a good estimation system, right? And the problem lies elsewhere. And that is the reason why option A is incorrect. Now let's look at option B. Asking the product owner to break down user stories into smaller manageable chunks. Okay, right. So this could be part of the solution. However, we are making a big assumption here, okay? And in the PMP exam, be very careful of making such assumptions which are too far-fetched, okay? What if the real problem is that the team needs more, let's say, technical training, okay? Or maybe there are external dependencies slowing things down, right? So by jumping straight to breaking down the stories, we might be solving the wrong problem. And that is why option B is also incorrect. Then let's look at option C. Removing team members who aren't meeting the sprint commitments. Okay, this is perhaps the most problematic approach of all of the options provided, right? Because it totally falls apart in the context of servant leadership. Now in Agile, we of course value people and interactions immensely, right? That is one of the key principles of Agile Manifesto. So jumping to removing team members without understanding the full picture is like firing one of your team members just due to the reason that he or she has not performed in a single sprint, right? So that is very unfortunate and very nonsensical. So there could be countless reasons for delays, right? And that could have nothing to do with the individual's performance. So as a servant leader or as a product owner or as a project manager, you should be aware of this, okay? And that brings us to option D, which is the correct answer to this question. Investigating the root cause, okay? Now think about it, that if you were a doctor, would you prescribe a medicine before understanding what is causing the problem in your patient or what is the problem that is making your patient sick, right? So the same principle applies in project management as well. So by taking time to investigate the root cause and by understanding that, okay, what is causing this complexity or what is causing this capacity planning issue, we are really trying to go deep into the cause of the problem rather than just doing a quick fix on the symptom, okay? So D is obviously the right choice for that sole reason. It may be the case that you will discover that the stories are indeed too complex, right? Or perhaps you will find out that the team needs additional resources or training, okay? You might even learn that external factors are causing the delays which are beyond the control of your team, okay? But before you do a root cause analysis, you will not be in a position to understand these kind of situations, okay? And that is why the correct answer to this question is option D.
Now, if you are preparing for your PMP exam, guys, I would suggest that you check out my PMP exam preparation courses on Udemy. All the courses are very highly rated amongst the students, and many PMP aspirants like you have passed their PMP exam with the help of these courses. You can check the student reviews on Udemy, and all the links will be provided in the description section of this video in case you are interested to join. Okay, and now let's move on to question number 2.
Right, so question number 2, guys, please pause the video, read the question and try to answer it before we solve this together. So the drill will remain the same. Okay, right, so let's get started. An e-commerce website is experiencing a surge in customer support tickets. Okay, analysis reveals that customers are attempting to use the shopping cart and checkout process in unexpected ways that the development team hadn't considered during the design phase. Okay, so given these findings, which agile practice would be most efficient in terms of preventing the problem, or which agile practice could have been efficient in terms of avoiding the problem? Okay, that is the question. So let's look at the options one by one. Option A, acceptance test driven development. Now ATDD, or acceptance test driven development, is valuable. Okay, of course it is, because it focuses primarily on whether features meet specified acceptance criteria. But in our case, the problem isn't that the shopping cart fails to meet the requirements, okay, because the shopping cart is actually meeting the requirements. However, the problem is that we didn't anticipate how users would try to use it. Okay, so ATDD typically validates expected behaviors rather than helping us discover unexpected ones. Okay, and that is the reason why ATDD is an incorrect answer choice for this scenario. Now moving to option B, code reviews and pair programming. Okay, now these are excellent practices for maintaining code quality and sharing knowledge within development team, but they are more focused on implementation details and technical excellence, right? While they might help identify logical flaws or technical issues, they really don't specifically address understanding user behavior patterns. Okay, so if we take an example of two different developers reviewing a code independently, they are still working from the same internal assumption about how users will interact with the system. Okay, because the problem statement here is the way in which the user is interacting with the system, and that is why option B is also incorrect. Now let's look at option C, because this is the correct answer, guys. Okay, so in this scenario, BDD, or behavior driven development, is the most effective practice because this fundamentally changes how we approach a development process. Okay, instead of just focusing on what the software should do functionally, BDD forces us to think about how users will actually behave. Okay, in this e-commerce situation, which is this scenario, BDD would have helped the team to write specifications from the user's perspective. Okay, and that could have potentially revealed these unexpected shopping cart usage patterns before they could have become customer support issues. Okay, so if you have studied BDD from your agile topic, you know that BDD follows a given, when, and then, right? So what is given to you, how or when the customer is actually interacting with it, and then what is the outcome of that interaction. Okay, so this framework of given, when, and then explicitly makes the product managers consider various user behaviors and the scenarios during the design phase of a product. Okay, and that is the reason BDD, or behavior driven development, is the correct answer to this question. Now before we close the discussion, let's discuss option D as well. I hope none of you have selected option D, which is sprint retrospective, because while retrospectives are crucial for team improvement and process refinement, they are basically reactive, right, rather than preventive. Retrospective help us learn from past experiences, but they don't specifically help us to anticipate user behaviors before they actually occur, right? So in this case, we need a practice that helps to prevent the problem rather than the one that helps us to reflect on it after the problem has actually occurred, right? So that is the reason option D is incorrect. So the key takeaway here is that in a scenario when we are dealing with user behavior misalignment, we need practices that put user behavior at the forefront of our development process, right? So BDD does exactly that thing by making behavior specification a core part of the development process rather than something we test out for review and correct after iterations. Okay, so remember, while all of these practices which you see on screen have their place in agile development, the question of the scenario here asks specifically about preventing mismatches between the designed functionality and the actual user behavior, and that is what precisely BDD or behavior driven development addresses as a tool. So the correct answer to this question is option C.
Now before we move on to question number 3, guys, I would suggest that you check out my membership community on YouTube as part of your PMP exam preparation. I share daily posts on PMP exam tips, tricks and strategies via this platform. Okay, and also if you are a tier 2 member, you get a chance to speak with me one-on-one over a live session twice every month. Okay, it's a monthly subscription based service, okay, and you can cancel anytime you want to. All the links will be provided in the description section of this video, so please do check it out. Okay, and now let's move on to question number 3.
Right, so question number 3, guys, please pause the video and read the question and try to answer it. So the drill will remain the same, and once you have taken an attempt, we will discuss the correct answer choice and the rationale behind the same. Okay, right, so let's get started. The project involves developing a new cybersecurity framework. Okay, when a new project manager joins the project midway, the executive sponsor asks them to create the risk management plan. How should the new project manager proceed in this situation? Okay, so let's look at the options one by one. So let's look at option A, delaying the plan development by submitting a change request until risk categories and impact matrices are defined. Okay, now if you look at this option, you need to understand that while risk categorization is important, this approach unnecessarily delays progress and suggests starting from the scratch when valuable frameworks are likely to exist already within the project, right? Because the project is already midway, right? So in this situation, this is an overtly cautious approach that could impact project timelines, okay, without adding any proportional value. Okay, so that is the reason option A is incorrect. Scheduling meetings with stakeholders to collect threat intelligence and industry security standards. Now, while stakeholder input is valuable, jumping directly to external sources before understanding internal processes could lead to misalignment within organizational practices. Okay, it's like thinking that, okay, I have not set my own house in order and I am going outside my house and I am going outside the boundaries of my house to establish order and harmony, right? So that should not be the case. You should look within your house first to establish order and harmony before you move out. So that rationale remains the same while evaluating option B as well. Okay, because this option overlooks the wealth of knowledge and experience which is already present within the project team or the organization, right? So that is the reason option B is also incorrect. Let's look at option C. Scheduling a meeting with the project sponsor to obtain threat assessment data and risk tolerance threshold. Okay, now outright, whenever you are scheduling a meeting with the project sponsor, that is escalation, and for 99.99% scenarios in the PMP exam, these type of options are generally incorrect. Okay, now let's look at the rationale for this question and why option C is incorrect here. Although the sponsor input is crucial, the sponsor may not be the best initial source for detailed technical and procedural information about risk management, right? While they set the overall direction, and that is the job of the sponsor anyways, However, you need to understand that the existing project leadership team would likely have more detailed operational knowledge about risk management practices than the project sponsor, who is managing this project from a portfolio level, right? Which is a very, very high level, like a 10,000 feet level. So scheduling a meeting with the sponsor to obtain threat assessment data, etc., etc., it is expecting a lot of micromanagement from the project sponsor, which is clearly not a sensible approach, and that is why option C is also incorrect. And of course, the correct answer to this question is option D, which is obtaining an established risk management process and plans from the existing project leadership and then seeking their guidance on security controls. Now, this is the most effective approach because it leverages organizational knowledge that already exists, right? Which is organizational process assets, OPAs, or learn from experience lessons learned register, etc., etc. Okay. So when joining an ongoing project, especially one which involves complex cybersecurity frameworks, it is very, very crucial to understand how the organization has historically approached risk management. Now, the existing project leadership has valuable context about organizational risk tolerance, previous security implementations, and of course the lessons coming out of it, right? So by seeking their right guidance, the new project manager can ensure continuity while of course benefiting from the established best practices that already exist within the project team. So the key learning from this question is to understand that effective project managers always build upon existing organizational knowledge rather than reinventing the wheel, right? So in complex domains like cybersecurity, understanding and leveraging established practices is usually more efficient and effective than starting afresh, okay? And finally, this approach also demonstrates respect for the organization's experience and of course promotes consistency in project management practices, right? So for all these reasons, the correct answer to this question is option D.
Now, before we move on to question number 4, guys, make sure you do subscribe to my channel PMP with Ray for more such videos like this for your PMP exam preparation, okay? Your support really helps educational channels like this to grow on YouTube. And now, let's move on to question number 4.
Okay, so question number 4, guys. So the drill will remain the same. Please read the question and try to answer it before we solve this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. A project has a risk management plan in place, okay? So this plan states that all identified risks must have mitigation actions documented and implemented at least 7 business days before a critical milestone, all right? Recently, 3 high priority risks were found to have no mitigation actions documented, and that potentially had an impact on the milestone. So what should the project manager do now? All right, so let's go through the options one by one. Let's look at option A because this is the correct answer, guys. Okay, so in this scenario, the correct action is to generate a cause and effect diagram for analysis, because this tool, which is often also called as the Ishikawa diagram or a fishbone diagram, enables the project manager to systematically identify and understand the root causes of why critical risk management processes were not followed. Okay, so it basically helps you to understand the root cause of an issue which has happened. So by mapping out the potential contributing factors, for example, it could be process gaps, it could be lack of resources, it could be unclear responsibilities. So by doing these kind of a contribution factor analysis through the help of the cause and effect diagram, the project manager gains insights to address underlying issues effectively rather than just the symptoms. Okay, so this approach aligns with the proactive problem solving, which of course you need to keep in mind as an PMP exam aspirant, that you should always look forward towards proactive problem solving. And this is also something that is expected in professional project management, which ensures adherence to the approved management plan. Okay, so the correct answer is option A. Now let's look at option B, C, and D and analyze why those options are incorrect. Okay, option B, rewrite relevant portions of the risk management plan. Now, while revisiting and updating the risk management plan may be necessary in some cases, In this scenario, it is a bit premature to rewrite it without understanding the root cause of the issue, right? So modifying the plan arbitrarily could result in misalignment with the original project objectives and stakeholder expectations. Generating a cause and effect diagram first ensures that any changes to the plan are well informed and analyzed till the root cause, and then if it makes sense, you can go ahead and update the risk management plan. Okay, so that is why option B is quite premature in terms of an action, and that is why it is incorrect. Let's look at option C. Inquire regarding the feasibility of an external risk audit. Okay, now an audit is a formal and often a intensive process. As a project manager, I hope you are aware of that. Okay, now while it may help in understanding compliance issues, whether the audit is external or internal, it is not an immediate or targeted solution to the problem at hand. Okay, so in this scenario, the focus should be on quickly diagnosing and addressing the root cause of the failed process before you go ahead and explore extensive measures like an audit, which of course could be done, but it could be an action as part of your learn from experience, and then you do an audit and put some systemic measures in place so that these kind of situations doesn't happen in future. But in terms of what should the project manager do now, of course doing an external audit is not something which is an immediate need in this scenario. That is why option C is incorrect. Let's look at option D. Contact the project sponsor and request advice. Again, contacting the project sponsor is an escalation, and for 99.99% scenarios in your PMP exam, these kind of options are basically incorrect. Okay, however, for this question, let's understand the rationale that why option D is incorrect, because although communicating with the project sponsor is essential for critical decisions, of course, escalating the issue without attempting to understand the root cause of course shows a lack of initiative from the project manager standpoint, right? You need to remember the sponsors expect the project manager to investigate problems and present well analyzed solutions rather than seeking guidance prematurely. Okay, so by analyzing the issue with a cause and effect diagram, the project manager can provide the sponsor with clear information and actionable recommendations if needed. Okay, so whenever you are going to your sponsor, always go with the problem statement and then your analysis and then your recommendation, and then it will be like a healthy discussion with your project sponsor, and that is the last resort in terms of the types of answer options which the PMP exam generally presents to you. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So the correct answer to this question is option A.
I hope you are finding this exercise helpful, right? Remember, the target is to get all the 5 out of the 5 questions correct. However, the minimum expectation is that you should get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct, right? So here comes the 5th and the final question.
Right, so the final question, guys, please read the question and try to answer it before we solve this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. A project involves 3 vendors providing key components for a product launch. The components are highly interdependent, and delays or quality issues with one vendor's deliverables could impact the work of the other vendors. The lead, or let's say the team leader from one vendor, expresses concern about potential misalignments or conflicts as the deliverables are integrated. Keep in mind that it is potential misalignments or conflicts that we are referring to. We are not referring to actual misalignments or conflict that has already occurred in the project. So we are talking about a risk, not an issue. Okay. So what guidance should the project manager offer to the vendor leads? Okay. So the correct answer to this question is option A, guys. Okay. Which is to arrange regular weekly meetings with all vendor leads to identify and address potential conflicts by tracking each vendor's progress collaboratively. Now this is correct because, of course, proactively scheduling regular meetings with all vendor leads ensures early identification of potential conflicts or delays. Okay. And as a PMP aspirant, I hope you're already aware that collaboration allows the vendors to stay aligned and address interdependencies efficiently and adapt to changes before they become critical issues. Okay, so before the risk becomes an issue. So this approach reflects good communication and coordination practices, which are of course essential for managing highly interdependent deliverables. Regular tracking also keeps all stakeholders involved, ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the project. So it's a slam dunk choice, guys. Option A is the correct answer. So let's look at option B, C, and D and also analyze why they are incorrect. So let's look at option B first. Determine the most critical vendor deliverables, prioritize their work, and instruct other vendors to adjust their timelines accordingly. Now, this is quite unreasonable, guys, right? Because this approach assumes that one vendor's work is inherently more important than the others, which of course may not be true, right? Prioritizing one vendor without considering the overall dependencies could create unnecessary delays or conflicts, undermining the integrated nature of the project in the end, right? So this option also fails to promote collaborative problem solving, which is of course crucial in managing interdependent deliverables. So that is why option B is incorrect. Let's look at option C. Record conflicts as they arise and take necessary actions to resolve issues during the course of the project. Very, very reactive approach, guys. Okay. So while documenting conflicts is of course important, this option is very, very reactive, right? Rather than being proactive. And we are repeatedly discussing this across our multiple Q&A sessions over the previous months that of course, as a good project manager, you should focus on more proactive problem solving rather than reactive problem solving. So waiting for conflicts to occur instead of addressing potential issues early on can lead to costly delays or disruptions, right? Very common sense. A proactive approach, as suggested in option A, is always preferred in project management, especially when dealing with critical interdependencies. As simple as that. That is why option C is incorrect. Let's look at option D. Allow all vendors to continue working concurrently, assuming any issues or conflicts can be handled during the integration phase. Again, a reactive approach, right? Assuming conflicts can be resolved later is a very risky and inefficient approach. Delaying the resolution of potential issues until the integration phase can of course magnify your problems, right? Leading to project delays, cost overruns, or quality issues. Please remember that effective project management always requires anticipating and mitigating risks proactively and not acting on it reactively or postponing them. Okay, so that is why option D is also incorrect. So the correct answer to this question is option A, because that is the most effective and proactive solution. And of course, if we go back to option A, you will see that it focuses on coordination, it focuses on communication and early risk identification. And these are critical for managing interdependent work streams. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So the correct answer to this question is option A.
So that's the end of the quiz, guys. Let me know in the comment section below how much you were able to score. Okay, I'd be very, very interested to know that. Also, if you have scored less, please do not be demotivated. Okay, you just need a bit more preparation. Do a thorough analysis of your mistakes so that you get to know about your knowledge gaps and you are able to fix those on time. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will see you again next month with another session on PMP exam practice questions and answers. Have a nice day and bye for now.